Welcome back. You're watching Uongozi Today, and also the Kenya Association of Manufacturers have spoken as well regarding the finance bill. Remember, today is a D-Day, the deadline when you're supposed to be submitting your proposals regarding this particular bill as well. Now it says that the tax proposals, that is Kenya Association of Manufacturers, in the upcoming budget will make many business untenable by raising the cost of production. This will in turn open up the country to cheaper imports from the region that is going to adversely affect that particular sector. They say proposals such as the 10% export and investment promotion levy on imports will hit many industries such as cement, steel and paper hide, giving them input on the bill under the aegis of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers to the National Assembly's Committee on the Finance and Planning on Wednesday. They noted, that is a lobby group, that if it is passed in its current state, it will significantly weaken local manufacturing. This is the eye-popping figure there, 663 billion shillings, the budget deficit in the upcoming 2023-2024 financial year, down from 860 billion shillings in the in the 2022-2023 financial year. So they've spoken, and it seems, as we were alluding to Dr. Green,
yes,
that all the major sectors and the facets of the society right now in this country have spoken, save for cotton, especially the housing, where Francis Otwolo was saying we support because this will eradicate slums in this country.
And maybe even before I respond to the issues of KM and KEPSA,
yes,
we have discussed and imagined that it's not a crisis on housing. It may be so, truly so. When you get into the facts and figures as were presented by the peers, and I give it to him, it's just about timing. The 91% of Kenyans don't own houses. I think that's a crisis. Only that it needs to be placed in its right place. What are the things that we need to deal with so that people can own houses and deal with this challenge in the best way possible? But truly, if 91% of Kenyans don't own their own houses, that is a serious crisis, and we need to work on it. But getting back to what we are talking about, KEPSA and KAM talking about the issue of not supporting the finance bill, I think they have raised three issues, and I'm part of KEPSA in the environment sector and also KAM in the automotive sector. So one of the issues that, and before even that, KAM has always been an institution that supports the bill. It's passed through with the manufacturers at the right time before it is taken to the final stages. So it's a very rare situation that we are in this situation. One, manufacturing of motor vehicles. What does the bill say? It talks about having vehicles exempted from VAT at the attainment of 50% of local content. What KAM wants, and the manufacturers of motor vehicles are saying, can we have a roadmap? Can we have a plan? Can we have a delivery of this 50%? Because there are two things. One, if it is passed the way it is, Chinese companies can come into Kenya, and the way they produce 100% out there in their country, they can come and produce local content, build everything at the expense of existing institutions here in Kenya. It opens. In market, there is a disruption that leads to something else. This is a possibility. The second thing that KM and KEPSA is talking about is supporting the export, because when you look at the statistics at the moment, our export figures have been very poor. But then the challenge is this: are you going to tax the preliminary products, the raw products, and at the same time tax the final product? Because it's going to mess up. If you look at something like clinker, if you look at the wire rod has about 16 different products, including nails and all that. When you tax the wire rod, when you tax the clinker, you increase the cost of final product. Like even cement at that point goes to about, importation becomes cheaper from Egypt by 13%, and therefore people will resort to doing that. But again, we can also produce for export. That is a possibility. But again, this is an issue that needs to be looked at, and they have to be listened to. And the fact that the government, the public sector, employs about 700,000 people, and the public sector, the private sector employs 2 or 3 times more in the 2.5 or 3 million people. They need to be listened, because they need to be listened to, not to be talked at in this kind of a process. They need to be part of that entire process so that people can feel that they are being carried along in this process. So these are things that we need to appreciate. We need to understand that they need to be done in the best way possible for the good of Kenyans, and not just to assume, because now Kenya is part of the Africa region. If you import some of these things like cement I was talking about and a COMESA, done. You have your products from Africa. The entire continent of Africa is one market, and it's going to be totally different from what things have been in the previous times and regimes. So these are important things, and people need to be listened to. Institutions need to be listened to. If we allow businesses to thrive in our country, all these other things will be sorted out. But I said, and I agree with my sister here, that the problem we have is not just the legalese of things. It is our values that we need to deal with. And once we deal with this, it will never be the same. We are going to progress in the best way possible. We are talking at each other. We have ideas that we are just implementing out of what we imagine that can work elsewhere, without maybe necessarily involving the people who are here. But who said that things can work unless there is disruption? Maybe this is what could lead to an opening that is mind-boggling for the people of Kenya. Yeah.
Daisy, do you think in any way, because I think we had writings on the wall from last year, when you looked at from around August, even with the international publications, that we should be bracing up ourselves for 2023. It's going to be a hard time. Beginning January, all the publications were indicating that. And we're telling Kenyans, oh, look at this, we need to brace up ourselves for next year. In a way, did the campaigning period maybe also scupper the whole process of, people now concentrating on their preparation for this, that will have a soft landing on this other side of the year, because everyone was concentrating on the campaigns, and we did not really prepare for what we have right now?
No, the politicians were busy talking about how they were going to make it a soft landing. There were promises that if you elect me, and by the way, it was coming from...
in power then.
Listen, it was coming from all sides. It was coming from all sides. No. It was coming from all sides.
From both sides,
Both sides. Both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio were making promises that were at odds with the state of the nation. Because remember that there was a promise of lowering the cost of living, lowering the cost of food, the cost of unga, the cost of bread, ensuring employment for the lowly, particularly the hustler, bringing the hustler up the pyramid, making hundreds of billions of shillings available for people to borrow and spur a vibrant economy. On the other hand, we were having free education from nursery to university, and there was universal free health care. 6,000 shillings to all the households. So they were all unreasonable.
The social protection.
Yes, the social protection scheme, that was going, the lowly was going to get the 6,000. So everybody was making promises that were at odds with the situation, because it wasn't even 2022. From 2020 already, the signs were there. The indications were there that Kenya was already in trouble. Now, the reality is, as I think it is Right Honorable Raila Odinga who says that you campaign in poetry and govern in prose. So the reality is now when everybody is settled and we are no longer trying to woo you, you give people the true picture of the situation. And that is what the government needs to do. You cannot, on the one hand, demand that people are squeezed to the nth. Meanwhile, the government has released its belt and is living its best life yet. We are in a crisis and it is time to talk. If you are not going to listen to manufacturers, who are you going to listen to? Because these are your people who create jobs. Government doesn't, there is also a misconception. But the government has been
very categorical that yes, we are in the doldrums. There is no money.
Yes,
we are running on fumes.
If we are running on fumes and government, there is nowhere government goes to work to get its money. So if government is running on fumes, it means the people are running on fumes, okay? So how then do you try to now get more from those fumes? Because that is exactly what the government is doing. If the government is running low on its revenue, okay? And then you were now going back to the same people where you are not able to gather enough revenue. Professor talked about capital flight. We have been having capital flight for quite some time. I think for the last, it's almost been consecutive, about 3-4 years. We've had serious capital flight because Kenya is no longer investment destination because the cost of production in Kenya is too high. The cost of electricity, the cost of fuel, the cost of inputs, it is just too high. Then you make it that much worse by increasing taxation. You're going to increase capital flight. You're going to ensure job losses. You're going to ensure the casualization of work, so that now people are looking for ways. People are now going to look for ways to evade paying tax, not to pay tax. And Kenyans have always paid tax. The problem here is we are being forced to pay additional taxes without commensurate service delivery, without commensurate development. Majority of this tax is actually going towards debt repayment. So it's not even going to help the people. So you are taking from our pockets to go and feed other pockets, which is why I agree with what Prof is saying. We need to have a look at our debt. We need to look at, is it possible to schedule it? Is it possible to phase it? What can we do to steady the ship? But you've got to listen to your people. The government is administering the state on behalf of Kenyans, and Kenyans are in lamentation. You cannot close your ears to the cries of the people and expect it to go well.
Thank you, Prof.
I actually don't agree that we're in any crisis. We have created a crisis. There is something people say Africa is blessed, okay? It doesn't have natural disasters. There are natural disasters in Africa is the politicians and the church. So what it is here, what we are saying here, this is...
Maybe you don't say the church. Maybe you say religion. Yes, because the church is not a...
Yes, that's the natural... So even in this crisis, we are minting it ourselves. Look, imagine if when the president took over this government, he has a cabinet of 9 ministers. So that's possible.
14 is the minimum.
14, yes, 14 ministers, okay? He doesn't have these 50 CSs, but he employed the doctor, the 4,000 doctors out there who are told are not employed. Allowed the court to process the corruption cases which were in court, that they were not interfered with. Stop project which are simply intended to make money, like the proposed now
extension of SGR.
Extension of SGR, the proposed in that one in phase 2, Nduma number phase 2.
Yes.
Okay.
The digital
IDs. Because that's just, you see, government money is stolen through projects. So when you come in the office, you must create a project to enable you to steal public money. So if we are prudent, we deal with the leakages of the taxes that is collected. We have a lean, small government. Instead of government trying to imagine it can build the houses, which it won't, you reduce all taxes, input on construction, allow the private sector to do its work. Instead of trying to tell us you are solving our problem, food problem, by importing, you remove all taxes on input, on food, and allow Kenyans to feed themselves, because they will attract investors, because the cost of doing that in business has gone down. So look here, we are not making correct decisions. This country is rich, but the decisions we make, because they are self-driven, we are not able to capitalize on our vibrancy. Because look here, what we have done now to these mamambogas with this increase, NHIF used to be 500. We are now making it 1,000 something.
And yet
like
it is right now
and
almost
yet
insolvent. It is not
capacity is
working.
going to be higher. So what it is we have created a disaster ourselves.
True.
And we are now in it, and we are not willing to address it. There's nobody who forced us, for example, to decide to pay salaries for counties. Okay? We couldn't have simply funded development projects only in the counties and allow the counties to pay their own workers. Because what that means is we're going back to when we are the county councils, where the county councils were paying, others are paying high salaries, others low salaries, because that is their income. It allows creativity. It allows the county to figure out where to get the money. Now you are using other people's money. Because it's other people's money, you don't care. You wait for the money to come from the national government. So what it is we have built, we have dug this hole for ourselves, and we are continuing digging it. And the trouble is there is voices telling us this is not the right thing, but I can tell you, we have a saying where I come from. You know when you go to rent for cows in those days, the warriors used to put bells in the legs. And when you step down, you hear the bells, because these are many people. And we say the person who is going to die does not hear that noise. And the noise is really loud. These people are not hearing the noise. They can't hear the noise of the people saying, look, we are angry, we need better decisions. But I tell you what is the problem is the Kenyan collective consciousness. Because they say, people get the government they deserve. Our collective consciousness as a people has been sinking. And when the collective consciousness of the people goes down, they get also leaders with low consciousness who cannot think beyond the population they are leading. So what do? We need to increase collective consciousness. How is it increased? Collective consciousness sometimes is increased by recognizing values in education.
Sure.
Because they say when you want to destroy a country, destroy the education system. Right now we have a CBC, which nobody knows how it came in. And it's not helping because some schools simply don't have the teachers and the equipment required to do that job. We have now moved to another funding program for the universities without taking into account what has been happening with the CDF. Because the moment you surrender that decision to some individual Kenyans, knowing that corruption is our national religion, you know that this thing cannot actually work. But we have embraced it. We have said it will work without looking what has happened to CDF. CDF pays the people who campaigned for you, your relatives. It doesn't really pay for the poor as such. It is simply money for the MPs to manage. So what we need to do is self-recollect, and that's why I agree with her. We need a national catharsis. And we can get that when we have a national conversation on what is wrong with us, because clearly this country is rich, but something is wrong with ourselves and the leaders we produce.
So and at the moment, you may just realize that Kenya has become a supermarket for foreign products from different countries, including Tanzania, our very good neighbors that I love so much. Rye Products is producing 20% from Webuye here. But from Tanzania side, they are producing more than 100%. The products that we have on paper in the country is mostly Tanzanian.
But maybe it is also because of the cost of producing in Kenya.
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
The cost of production in Kenya is prohibitive.
Yeah, because that is all from Fundi paper. And those are the things that we need to deal with, address. And in whichever way that they can be addressed, then we must deal with them, because we can't continue doing this. We are impoverishing our own people out of some of these things. So
I like what, because I know Prof, you're just about to leave. I think your time also is, but I wanted to, because you're the one who mentioned the church, and you've mentioned also the politician.
The religious,
not the church.
Not the church.
The church has nothing to do with this. And
just to talk about religion, because it's not just the church. I must also defend the church.
So I want us just to also look at this editorial cartoon so far. And this is what Gado had drawn. If we may just take it fully. It says, a while ago, this is how the flock was. We had the priests taking care of the flock, but today that is the current state of the play, where now the posse of goons actually are leading the flock, leading actually the shepherd. Has the church also lost its voice? Especially right now, where we can see the podium has become, every other Sunday we wait for pronouncements to be made from the podium in the church that are not really anything to do with churchy matters, but politics, right? The listing of the shareholders, they will always say those things from that particular podium. If you look at this editorial cartoon, and I'm just now harking back to what you were saying, that our problem is a not natural disaster, but our natural disaster is the politics
and the church
and the religion.
Yes.
To be very categorical.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see,
can we hear from Daktari, and then we come back to you, or because you're going?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
because we live in a given time.
Yeah. You see, this is the role played by religion or church. Because of their disposition to God, we assume purity in them. And we also assume we can trust them more than the politicians. So they give us alternative leadership. Okay? That has now been dissolved into politics. And they have allowed it. Because now you can't distinguish. You see, when the president or his deputy talks with the clergy behind him, with those scholars, you assume they are supporting what he is saying. They may not be supporting him, but now that's the assumption. The assumption is that they are supporting what they are saying. So for me, at one time, I have argued that the religiosity of the church is actually becoming a danger to Kenya's democracy. Because when you convert the pulpit and you remove the trust people have built over the years on the church, you remove it, then people have nowhere to run when the politicians go wrong. Because you see, we need to run to the religious leaders when the politicians go wrong, because they can go. They can go wrong. Now, we are closing that chapter. We are closing it by politicizing. And also, the church have been heavily commercialized. They have simply become commercial. You just go to the church with some money, and they will anoint you regardless of your history. Because history should guide them.
Yes.
On what you are to society. So we have dissolved all this, and this is why I think that statement of the disasters we create ourselves.
Yes.
It is between these two, because of the critical role they play in managing us and managing our expectations.
So, Daktari, if we may take a stock of a church where it was with the ratings that we had from the polls, I think the polls that we had in this country were rating church, or Kenyans were speaking very glowingly about the church and the media. Do you think if we take maybe a straw poll right now, the ratings will have gone down, or they will have been maintained? From your own assessment, how will the ratings be?
Away from the ratings, I think where
No, from
you're
your own
talking
assessment, from your own
about
assessment.
from all this, what we have lost, because my assessment may be right or wrong, depending on where I'm leaning on. What I know for sure that we have lost is what is written in the Holy Book, Philippians chapter 4, starting from the beginning, where our humility must be known to all, where we must be kind to everyone, where we must be considerate to everyone. These are some of the things, because life is about what we believe in. Church is what stands for. There is what must be felt. And if you are not kind, if you are not considerate to everyone, including your flock, then you start losing. When you have a better flock and a lesser flock, then you start losing all this. And it's back to the calling by the word of God. What are we supposed to be doing so that we can be able to progress as a nation? The church is supposed to unite. The church is supposed to speak the truth. The church is supposed to do all these things. And just like we are confusing, there is the church and there is the religion. The church stands. The church stands. And we must be able to be so active to do what the church is expected to do. Separate the individuals who have their own drive into getting things done in a different way, and stand by nothing but the truth to drive the flock in the best way that we are guided by the word of God. This is what we are losing. And therefore, as to where we stand and what we are, the Constitution calls us as a nation, knowing that we call upon the name of God, the living God. That is where our stance is. But 80% Christianity, but does that transform to who we are in one way or another? The corruption that is being talked about in this country, is that reflective of the Christians that we want to say, or the Muslims that we are, or the Hindus and all that? Because it's about what you believe in. Values is what we need to really drive before even we talk about what, where, and even the statistics of who is where. Because people are, I mean, what is Shakahola happening today? Today, the SGR is filled. I'm told that over 60 or 70 or 80% of the people who are on SGR are moving to go to a specific leader in a specific area. Nothing bad, but what values are they going to get there? Can we deal with it and deliver the word of God in the best way that it is possible? If it is in question, let it be dealt with. If it is right, God be praised. And that is all that we need to start dealing with. Values. Is where we need to anchor ourselves as presented in the Bible.
Okay. You wanted to say something on this particular issue of the church?
I do want to say something about it, and to say that, number one, it's not unique to Kenya. And it is not unique to our times. This is something that has happened time and time again, even in the very scriptures that we talk about. You see the lamentations of Yahweh when in the book of Isaiah, in the book of Jeremiah, when he talks about the priests going to strengthen the hand of the wicked and to tell them that it is well with them so that they do not repent of their wickedness, so that they provide platforms for them to deceive and for the people to be deceived. I do believe that in Kenya we have a moral crisis, because even within the religious sector we have a crisis in there, because it has been infiltrated by charlatans who are basically conning the people. We had somebody who was using some color to make people believe they were being delivered of demons, and their water was running. Others who were charging people to 5,000 shillings to see if your name is in the book of life. As in, the religious sector has been infiltrated by charlatans. But I think that it is also a manifestation of the values of the people of this nation. You know, Professor talked about that we have brought ourselves to this crisis. Kenya is like the proverbial woman in the Bible who tears her house down with her own hands. We have created this situation ourselves through deceit. Again, Professor said something which I think is actually, we should reflect. Corruption has become the national religion of Kenya. We are corrupt, fiscally, morally, spiritually corrupt as a people. And what that does, it manifests in the kind of things that we're seeing. A religious class that is not able to rebuke the corrupt political class and call them to order, because they are similar in nature. So deep, you know, the same calls unto same. Giving them platforms to spew hatred, tribalism, and division off a pulpit, you know. So these are the things that we need to discuss. We need to agree. We do not have a shared value system in Kenya, and that actually is our crisis. We need to address our value system as a people, because for as long as we are scattered within our values, we do not have shared values, we do not have shared vision, we do not agree. Our leaders, can you imagine a leader standing and saying that government is about shareholding? You are supposed to be a symbol of national unity, but you are actually saying that there are Kenyans who are not going to benefit equally from our administration. That some are more equal than others. And people think that that's okay. That you actually think that it's okay to say that. It is not. And it should be rebuked. We have not heard. Have we heard our religious leaders talking about that? How is it okay to employ one tribe only in every appointment? You're just seeing one tribe in a country that has over 50 different tribes. How is that okay? Where then is the the symbol of national unity? This is what makes people believe that they do not, that that they really don't have shareholding. Yet, it is the same people you expect to support that government, because we pay taxes for that administration to administer the state on behalf of all people. Yet, you tell us we are not part and parcel of it. You show us that we are not part and parcel of it. So ultimately, what are we going to see? We are going to begin to see divisions and fissures. And we'll never get to a place where we are a cohesive nation working together for the benefit of us all.
Indeed.
So I think the religious sector also needs to have a conversation, because we have a crisis across the board, including among the religious sector. Church and other religions, we do have a crisis.
So the church, they need to have a meeting. Yeah, you might attend.
We need to have a meeting. We know you might attend. Everybody needs to come out from behind the tent, and we need to have a national conversation.
I'm surprised why the opposition never called for tax boycott when that statement was made.
Yeah.
Because you see, if you have no shares there, then you should cease to pay taxes to a company that you are not involved in, which is not yours. I'm surprised they don't pick it up. You pick that up, and you say now, from now on, only the shareholder should pay taxes. So that the other one who don't own the shares, they don't have to get involved in that. So the fact that also they never responded on that is surprising. In their thinking.
Right, indeed. I know Prof is supposed to...
But it's just about personal responsibility from one individual to the other, even as we call upon the meeting to discuss issues, because it's a crisis, a real crisis. The most important thing is that everyone takes personal responsibility. Everyone does what is good for themselves and their immediate people there. And that will roll out across the country as an action that is going to be.
You know very well that it doesn't happen. You need a Nyerere to mobilize public consciousness.
Yes, people
consciousness. You need a Nyerere to mobilize our consciousness to detest and hate corruption. You need a Nyerere to mobilize our consciousness to be able to call each other ndugu. In other words, you need a leader. So you can't say the responsibility of, they say, there's a Kikuyu song which says that a pot being cooked by many people, it lacks somebody to remove it from the fire. So that means the food is spoiled. So when we say everybody is responsible, it means nobody is responsible.
We had
a journey.
Daisy was talking about now government representation, not really government, but the face of Kenya represented in government, some of its positions as well. And also on the flip side, people are asking and raising questions regarding some of the appointments that are done within also the security sector as well. If we look at some of its posts they're going to and being lined to one community, what does that really portend for the security of a nation if we have alignment also that is not really the face of Kenya in this security, some of these security agencies as well? Isn't that also something that we should reconsider?
That is a serious danger to the country. It is actually a national security issue, if you ask me, because I remember 2007, one of the problems why the police were not able to protect Kenyans in the Rift Valley is because of the one-sided nature of the police force then. And the new government, when it came in, it tried to mix, to say that every sub-county, or they call them, is in district, have to produce a two, so that there is imbalance. So when you tell it like that, first, you produce uneasiness among the population. And in fact, one reason why Kibaki changed the economy so quickly is the decisions which he made, which now showed to the people that this thing is moving in the right direction. So when you do those things which disturb people's consciousness, which make people feel there is unfairness, what you do, you even affect business performance, okay? You introduce the politics also within the families, because we are fairly mixed. This country, we are actually a nation, we are almost approaching a nation. You also affect that, because that fairness touches me when I have to pay this tax. I feel that I'm supporting the people I should not be supporting because I also deserve to be supported. So when you create all that, you are undermining collective consciousness because you are introducing negativity into the discourse and also into the way the people live. So, and that is why the Constitution and Article 10 and Article 232 is all about inclusivity, regional balance, and all that, because it wants to create a nation. In fact, I think we need to amend this document and extend the right to impeach the president, move it not in just parliament, but also to the judiciary. Because you see, now you can file violations to the judiciary, and you have a case, but right now, because the parliament is in the pocket of the executive, it can't help us, even though there is obvious violation of the constitution. So we need to rope in judiciary so that somebody can move to court and they say that there is violation, because violation of the constitution is one reason.
It's an impeachable offense.
It's an impeachable offense. So we need, in this conversation, this is asking, national one, we need to expand to have a clause that allows a Kenyan to move to court and they say, look, the leader I elected is not as violated this and this section, and allow the court to remove that person if the violation is proved. Because Parliament is not acting. Parliament is supposed to act on that. But now the Parliament is not acting.
But you'll be violating the voice of the people.
No, you wouldn't. Because you see, you are elected to govern according to this document. Okay? Now, when you violate this document,